Okay. All right. So I'm going to go over section 4.2 notes. We started these notes on Wednesday through in class, and we did not get everything finished. In fact, I think we only made it to let's see, page 3. And so I'm going to try to cover as much as possible real quick. If I'm not able to get through the entirety of the notes, I'll make sure I'm going to do another video covering these. I do know that we have a couple people out with sickness or other organizations or whatever. Okay, so I'll make sure and get all that taken care of. This is a little bit of a longer unit, and so I can't remember exactly what day I said on our little calendar thingy jig when we would be testing, but I do know that we have a little bit. I obviously don't want to go too slow and then have to play catch up at the end, but we're all right now on time. Okay. All right. So unit 4, section 2. Okay. We're talking about characteristics of quadratics, kind of like we did in section 1, except now we're going to be doing like more factoring of them. We will at the end of this section of notes actually go back in and talk about a lot of it that we already covered in section 1 and kind of just put it all together. But for right now, we're just going to be factoring. And so one thing to know is that, is that a quadratic can be transformed from standard form to factored form just by simply factoring the function, okay? So we have R and S, which are what's called the zeros. Oh, I need to make this a little smaller, hang on. The zeros are also the roots, okay, of a function. Those are also the x values of the x-intercepts of the function, okay? As is with the standard form and vertex form, a is still your leading coefficient, and so whatever this number is here, that's still your leading coefficient, okay? I don't know. Well, once we start factoring by GCF, then we will have some that have a leading coefficient. But for right now, actually, for a while, we won't have any. In fact, it doesn't look like we will have any until we get all the way down to page 7. So, second to last page, okay? All right, so use the first example to complete the other diamond problem, and then apply what you learned. So pretty much, and you know I don't like to do a whole lot of showing explaining explaining what the example was that they did. I would just rather go through and do it. So that's what I'm going to do over here on number 2. So on number 2, so this number, the 7 here, that is your B. Negative 30 is your C. Okay. So what we do with this little diamond, X, whatever you want to call this kind of organization of it, is we're trying to multiply to give me negative 30. So over here in our little table that will later be transformed to a T-chart, we're going to have our negative 30. And so we're going to write out our factors of negative 30. One thing to know, though, I'm not going to mess with the negative signs right now, because if I'm multiplying to get a negative number, the only thing that changes is that one of those numbers are negative that I multiply together. Okay, so the factors of 30 are obviously 1 and 30, 2 and 15. And remember, when I say factors, I mean what numbers can be multiplied to give me 30. I have 3 and 10, and then 5 and 6. Okay, and again, as I said, since the number the number is negative that we multiplied to get, that means one of our numbers has to be negative. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. So we're trying to multiply to get the negative 30, but we need to add. So we're adding to get 7 and multiplying to get negative 30. So I'm going to go through my factor pairs to see, well, what numbers could I add together in some way, or maybe even, add a negative. But how can I add them together to give me a positive 7? Well, obviously, if I take negative 1 plus 30, that gives me 29. And if I take 1 plus negative 30, that gives me negative 29. So I'm not going to use 1 and 30. If I add 2 plus negative 15, I get negative 13. If I take negative 2 plus 15, I get positive 13. So that didn't help. If I take negative 3 plus 10, I get 7. Okay, so that's the factor. Whoa. That's the factors that I'm going to use here. Okay, so in my little diamond X thingy here, I'm going to have negative 3 and 10. And so what you'll see, and we'll do this in a little bit, but I did show the kids in class. The reason we do this is because now I can rewrite this trinomial as x minus 3, x plus 10. And those two numbers, that is really thick. Okay, those two numbers came from our factors. Okay, and so that's where those come from. Okay, and so that's the reason that we factor, or that we do that, is so that way we can then factor. It just kind of makes it easier for us. All right, so now we go down here to number 3, and I do want to point out that I haven't already, and I don't know that I did in class either until it was after the fact. But in number 2 and number 1, our x, which is our leading coefficient, is a positive 1. So now in number 3, our leading coefficient is actually 7. So it's not a 1. And so when this happens, we're going to do what I call slip and slide. And so I'm going to write that right here. Oh, not slop. Slip and slide. And what I mean by that is I'm going to take 7 times negative 6. And so 7 times negative 6 gives me negative 42. Now that's where this 42 up here on the top came from. Okay? So I don't change that, my C value. I'm just trying to multiply to get that. But I need to add to give me a negative 1. So I'm adding to give negative 1 and multiplying to give me negative 42. So I'm going to go ahead and write out my factors here. And so the factors of 42 are obviously 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 14, and then 6 and 7. Okay, and no, this question was not made for the 6, 7 piece of this. In fact, this was made before that was ever a thing. So get your laugh out and then let's go on. Okay, so now remember, I'm adding to get negative 1. Well, obviously I can't do negative 40 or negative 1 plus 42 to get negative 1. 42 plus negative 1 also doesn't equal negative 1. 21 and 2, there's no really way to add that to get that to be a negative 1. 14 and 3 the same way. But if I took negative 7 and I added 6 to it, I would get negative 1. Okay. Oh, no, not negative 6. I'm sorry. Positive 6 and negative 7. Okay, so those would be my factors there. Now, you would write this one a little bit, or solve it. You would solve it a little bit different. And we don't have the space to do that here on number 3. And so I'm not going to go ahead and tell you what the factors are. It's just a simple process of the X diamond type thing here as the organization piece and the T-chart, because we will be using those both. Okay. All right. And so then the last one here. So again, my leading coefficient is not 1. So I'm going to take 3 times negative 13 and I get negative 39. So my factors are 1 and 39. 2 doesn't go, 3 and 13. And I think that's actually all. But I do know that because this number is negative, okay, one of my factors have to be negative. So 1 and 39, I can't add those together in any way, shape, or form. So that's not going to work to give me a positive 10. But I can take negative 3 plus 13 to give me a positive 10. So those would be my factors that I would use, is negative 3 and 10. Okay. All right, so let's go down here to these examples here. I think, and if I remember right from class today, those of you that had me last year for Algebra 2, I did go over this, the concept we're about to do. And so it may look familiar to you. You may not remember right now off the top of your head, but I think once I show it to you, you're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember how to do that, okay? All right, so we go to factor this here. And notice we have a leading coefficient of 2. So I need to multiply 2 and 5 together. So 2 times 5 gives me 10. Okay. So I'm going to write out my factors of 10. And so it's obviously 1 and 10. That one's the obvious one. And then 2 and 5. Okay. So now I'm going to use my little diamond thing here. And remember, my C goes up top. So my 10 goes up top. And then my b, my middle term, is what is going to go on the bottom. So I'm going to go back over here to my t-chart to see, well, which pair of factors can be added together to give me a positive 7. Now, because this is being, this number here is a positive 10, okay, and we're adding to get a positive, we're going to keep we're going to keep our factors both positive. So if I take 1 plus 10, that doesn't give me 7. But 2 plus 5 does, so those would be my factors that I'm going to use. Okay? Now, here's how we do the factor by grouping. We're going to bring our A term. I'm actually going to highlight it. So I'm going to bring my first term here. Bring it down. So I get 2x squared. That's where that came from. Okay? I'm going to bring my C down. Okay. I don't know why I made them so far apart. Sorry about that. Okay, and so that's where that is from. And so now, remember my factors that I've already said would be 2 and 5. I'm going to split those up down here to be 2x plus 5x. And here's the reason, guys. We're trying to split this term up so I can factor by grouping. Well, 2x plus 5x gives me the 7x. So that's how I'm able to kind of pull that apart into 2 puzzle pieces instead of the one big piece. Okay? Now, factor by grouping means we just do this. We do our parentheses. Okay? And I ask myself, well, what is in common between positive 2x squared and positive 2x? And so, obviously, 2x is what is in common. So 2x squared divided by 2x gives you a x. And 2x divided by 2x gives you a positive 1. Okay? So then I move on over here to my other pair of, or other parentheses here, or other set of parentheses, excuse me. And I'm going to ask myself, what's in common between 5x and 5? Okay, so 5x and 5, the thing that's in common is a 5. Well, 5x divided by 5 gives me x. And 5 divided by 5 gives me a 1. So when we do factor by grouping, what I'm looking for is that these parentheses match. Okay? So if you get to this point of your problem and you realize, oh crap, I think I did something wrong because they don't match, stop right there and let's go back and check yourself. Okay? Because once you get to this point, you're pretty much to the answer. We pull the 2x down and the 5. And then I pull down one of the sets of parentheses that matched. So that x plus 1 comes down one time. And then that is your answer. Okay? All right, let's go over here. If you need some time to process that, remember, just pause your the video here, okay? All right, so moving on to this next one, we're going to do our slip and slide. So we're going to do 3 times negative 3 to get negative 9. And I'm going to find my factors of negative 9. So I know 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. Now I need to add, so I'm going to go ahead and do this here, negative 9 and 8. Okay, so I need to add somehow to get a positive 8. Well, if I take 9 plus negative 1, I get a positive 8. So that's what I'm going to use. Okay. So again, remember, we're going to do factor by grouping. So I'm going to bring my first term down and say 3x squared. And then I'm going to bring down my negative 3. And so I'm going to split this centerpiece to be plus 9x minus 1x. Sorry, I wrote those really far apart. Okay. And so from here, I'm just going to, I put my parentheses already, okay, and I'm going to do my factor by grouping. So, 3x squared and 9x have a 3x in common. So 3x squared divided by 3x gives you x, and 9x divided by 3x gives you 3. All right, so now we go into our next set of parentheses, and I have a negative 1x and a negative 3. And so I need to pull out what's in common there. But remember, my parentheses need to match. Oops. So I know that I need this negative 1x to be a positive 1. So I'm going to pull out a negative 1. Because negative 1x divided by negative 1 gives me positive x. And negative 3 divided by negative 1 gives you positive 3. Okay? And so, again, once you've got to this point, we bring down our 3x. We bring down our minus 1. And we bring down our x plus 3. Hold on, let me rewrite that. That looks bad. There it goes. There. Okay, and so there you have it. All right, so now we're going to go to page 2. Page 2, I'm going to show you a different method, and I will tell you, much to my surprise, most of the students in class today actually preferred to use this method. There's not either way that is wrong. In fact, as long as you do it correctly, I always try to say that little caveat, but as long as you do it correctly, you will get the exact same answer, whether you do the method that we were just doing on the front page or whether you do the box method. And also, I am pretty certain that whenever you are taking your test, you get to choose which method you use. I am, like I said, pretty certain that she doesn't say solve this using the box method or solve this using factoring, which is what box method is. But, okay, so just know that, okay? So I'm going to actually show it both ways. And then for the sake of the video, so it's not super long, I'm actually going to just show the box method after the first one. All right, so just like we were doing on the front, okay, this 2 is not a leading coefficient of 1, so I need to go ahead and multiply this. So when I take a times c, I get negative 8, okay? So I need to figure out, well, what are my factors of negative 8? So I know it's 1 and 8 and 2 and 4, okay? But I need to add somehow to give me negative 7 because that's my middle term. Well, if I took negative 1 plus 8, I would get positive 7. So instead, I'm going to take positive 1 plus negative 8. Okay? So when I have my little diamond here, negative 8, I would do 1 and negative 8. Okay? So now what you're going to do here is you're going to put these factors, the negative 8 and the positive 1, you're going to put this inside of your box. Okay? And so I'm going to zoom in over here on this Punnett square. So now what you're doing, so normally, like, I don't know, last unit, maybe the unit before, I can't remember, last unit actually, we did the box method and we were multiplying things together. Well, this time you're doing the opposite. So essentially you're dividing. Okay? So what you're going to ask yourself, though, is what can be multiplied to give me 2x squared? Okay? Well, I know it has to be 2x and x. Okay? Now, where I place it matters. And I say that because I wasn't paying attention in class and I actually did it wrong. So, if I put a 2x here, when I get down here to this box, there's nothing I can take 2 and multiply a whole number and multiply it by to give me a 1. So I'm not going to put my 2x in that box. Okay? And I'm going to put it here. Because 2x times something can give me negative 8x. Okay? So I'm going to say 2x and x there. So now what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, well, 2x times what gives me negative 8x? And that is going to be negative 4. And then I'm going to come over here to this square, this one right here. X times what gives me 1x, which is just going to be plus 1. And then we're going to double check ourselves that we haven't done anything wrong. And so look, okay, this bottom box I need to check. 1 times negative 4 gives me negative 4. Okay? And so now what you have done is here is a factor. And here is a factor. So our factors here are x minus 4, 2x plus 1. Okay. And so I'm going to show you over here that factoring by grouping what we were doing on the front, it'll give you the same answer. So remember, well, let me erase this, and it's only just so I can show you. You can write it wherever you need to on your notes. So remember, my 2x squared is going to come down. My negative 4 is going to come down. And so I'm going to split that negative 7x, that middle term, I'm going to split that up to be plus 8x minus, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. Minus 8x plus 1x, or you could just put plus x. It doesn't matter. Okay, so now I'm going to do my parentheses. Whoa. Okay, and so 2x squared and negative 8x have a 2x in common. So 2x squared divided by 2x gives me x. And negative 8x divided by 2x gives me negative 4. Okay. And so what you're going to see is that, hey, these already match, which is what we want, but we can't leave it alone. Okay. We're not going to have a factor of just 2x. So think to yourself for a second, what can you divide 1x and negative 4 by that gives you the same exact answer? That doesn't change the answer, okay? All right, did you choose positive 1? So if I took 1x divided by 1, I would get 1x. And if I took negative 4 divided by 1, I would get negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to pull out a positive 1. And again, I kind of already said it, but as I write it, 1x divided by 1 gives me x, and negative 4 divided by 1 gives me negative 4. Okay, so my parentheses still matter, or still match, excuse me. They still match, but I now have a binomial, which is what we have to have for our answer, okay? So I would bring my 2x down, so I have 2x plus 1 and x minus 4. Okay, all right, and that would be your answer, which is the exact same thing that we got over here on our Punnett square. Now, one thing that was asked this morning in class, which was a very good question, was does it matter the order? Like, you know, over here I have, let me use a different color. Over here I have x minus 4 first and then 2x plus 1, whereas over here it's the opposite order. So as a reminder, think to yourself, when you multiply things together, it doesn't matter the order that you multiply. So for example, 2 times 5 is 10. But if I flip that around, 5 times 2 is still 10. Okay, so the order doesn't matter with multiplication because there's a word for it, commutative, I believe. Okay, where the order doesn't matter. Okay, and so just know that it does not matter. All right, and so again, for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and do the box method. If you're watching this video in the box method, you don't prefer the box method, you want to do factor by grouping, and you need to come see me, definitely do that, okay? All right, so I need to do my slip and slide because I have a non-1 as a leading coefficient. So 3 times negative 3 gives me a negative 9. And so I need to add somehow to get negative 8. So my factors are 1 and 9, 3 and 3. Okay, well, because the 9 is negative that I multiplied, I know 1 has to be negative. Excuse me. And if I take 1 plus negative 9, I get negative 8. So that's what I'm going to use here. So I'm going to have negative 9x and 1x. Okay. So I'm going to use this first box here. So what can be multiplied to give me 3x squared? Okay, so 3x times x. Okay. Now remember, we need to check what's going on over here. And the reason being is because I don't want to put a 3x here, because 3x times any whole number does not give you 1. Okay, so that's not where I want to put my 3x. So I'm going to put my 3x over here and my x up top. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to ask myself, well, 3x times what gives me negative 9x? Okay, 3x times negative 3 gives me negative 9x. And then I'm going to ask myself, x times what gives me 1x? Well, just plus 1, right? And the last thing I'm going to do is double check to make sure that this is in fact right. Does 1 times -3 give you -3? Yes. Okay. So now that you've done your Punnett square here, now you're going to write out your factors. Okay. And so those would be your factors. All right. So on this next one, I will tell you, I know you don't have a Punnett square on the notes, but she does do the Punnett square on hers. But I'm going to remind you, because we're going to work hard. Like, you all know that. We're going to work hard. But we're going to work smarter, not harder, when it's applicable. And this is a certain case when it is. So, is our leading coefficient a 1? Yes. So, when your leading coefficient is a 1, you don't need to do the Punnett square. You don't need to do factor by grouping. You can. It is not going to cause you to have the wrong answer. It's just going to make you do more work. And to be honest, I think it's kind of silly to do more work whenever there's easier ways to get to the same destination. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to see, okay, we're still going to do our T-chart. And I'm going to put this number here at the top. Okay, I still put my C above. So I need to multiply to give me a positive 1. But then my B term is -2. So my factors for 1 are just 1 and 1, right? Okay. But I need to add it to be -2. So let me ask, what's a negative times a negative? A positive. So I'm going to make both of these ones negative. And so from here are my factors. So it's just x minus 1, x minus 1. Now, and I will actually tell you, she doesn't go the next step that I'm going to right now. She will eventually. But remember that this is the same thing as writing x minus 1 squared. Okay. All right. I remind myself. Okay, I got to that point. Okay. All right, let's do this last one. I'm going to go ahead and do Punnett square again. You are going to have to draw yourself out a Punnett square, which I think we can all draw squares. May not be perfect, but that's okay. All right. And so here's the deal. So when you're setting up your own Punnett square, this top right is your A. Okay. And so let me write it out. 2x squared. And then I'm going to color code for you. So 2x squared. Okay. Your bottom box is your C. Not the C you multiplied to get, but just your C from the original. Okay. All right. Now we do need to take and do our slip and slide. So 2 times -15 gives me -30. So my factors are 1 and 30. 2 and 15. 3 and 10. And 5 and 6. So again, remember the 30 is negative. And so to multiply to give me a negative number, one of my factors has to be negative. So 1 and 30, that's not going to help me get to positive 1. Again, I'm trying to find positive 1 here. 2 and 15 is not going to work for me. 3 and 10 doesn't work, but I can say positive 6 plus -5, okay, gives me a positive 1. So it would be 6x and -5x. Okay. All right, so now I need to just work out my Punnett square here. And so what can I multiply to give me 2x squared? 2x times x. So make sure whichever row and or column, depending on which one you're looking at, you put your 2x, make sure the entire row is divisible by 2. So 2 is divisible by 2 and 6 is divisible by 2. So I'm going to put my 2x there. And I'll put my x up here. Okay. All right. So 2x times what gives me 6x? Positive 3. And x times what gives me -5x? -5. So then negative 5 times 3 does give me 15, so I know that these are my factors. So my factors are going to be x plus 3, 2x minus 5. Okay? All right. And so let's go on to number 3, or the third page, excuse me. I will, I'm going to stop where I stopped today in class, so that way, excuse me, those that were absent today don't have to, like, stop in the middle of a video, or ones that are absent tomorrow have to, like, fast forward. I'm just going to make 2 separate videos for what I do today and what I'm doing tomorrow. Okay? And since it is almost 9 o'clock, I will record tomorrow's video tomorrow. Okay? I'm not going to record it tonight and stay up until 10 o'clock doing something, okay? On my own time. So, here's the deal. We're going to factor by grouping, okay? I can go through all of this, but I will tell y'all we already did that. Like, that's what we did without going through that, and I think sometimes y'all get kind of lost. Not lost in the jargon, but, like, the words don't make sense, so instead I'm just going to show you, okay? Kind of what we've already been doing. All right, but we have our little polynomial here, and we need to do factor by grouping. And so factor by grouping is when we are going to do our parentheses. Okay? So I'm going to ask myself what's in common between g to the third and 3g squared. Okay, and what's in common there is g squared. Okay? So g to the third, and I'm dividing it by g squared, or you can think of it this way if this helps you. This is usually how I say it for my other classes, is if I had 3 g's and I take out 2, I'm left with 1. Okay? If that helps you to say it that way, that's fine. Okay? And then I have 3g squared, and I took out, so again, I had 2 g's, and I'm taking out 2, so I'm just going to be left with my 3. Okay, and so then I go to my next one. So I have negative 7g and negative 21. So what's in common there is a negative 7. And so negative 7g divided by negative 7 gives me g. And negative 21 divided by negative 7 gives me a positive 3. And so again, with factor by grouping, we're trying to get our parentheses to match, which they do. Okay. And so I'm going to pull this down here. And I'll have g squared minus 7 and g plus 3. Okay? All right, and so now one thing to know, and we'll kind of touch base more, or not kind of, we will touch base more on this tomorrow. If this can be factored further, we would factor it. But I will tell you, I can't take the square root of 7, and so this is factored completely. Okay, and like I said, we'll touch base on it more tomorrow. But for tonight, just remember, or for today, this video, just remember, if it can't be factored anymore, then we're good. Okay. All right, last one for tonight. And so we're going to do factor by grouping. And so x to the 4th, and then I have minus 2x cubed. I'm going to take out an x cubed. So I had 4 x's, and I took out 3, so I'm left with 1. Sorry. And then I have negative 2x cubed, but I took out the x cubed, so I just have negative 2. So then I move over to my next one, and I have negative 27x and 54. So I'm going to pull out the negative 27. So negative 27x divided by negative 27 is x. And 54 divided by negative 27, is negative 2. So again, we're matching. And so we get x cubed minus 27 times x minus 2. Now, we will touch base on this tomorrow, that we can actually factor this further. And the one that we can actually factor further is this one right here. but I'm not going to go over it right now. I'm going to save that for later. It's going to be called difference of cubes, and so we will do that tomorrow. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I will try to get back with you as quickly as I can. Or you can always come in during jacket period. I do have morning duty this week, so unfortunately, morning tutorials is not an option for me this week. But I have other options. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Remember, I'm here for you. And whatever you need, just let me know, and I'll help you however I can.